If you ever feel like you might need someone to remind you who still believes, don't forget I'm not so far from home. Don't forget I'm not so far from home. 'Cause when it's you, my heart feels it too. Hold on, I'm coming through.
For this week's Women in Business series, I'm thrilled to introduce you to Amber May. Amber is a director of diversity and inclusion at Marquette University. She brings a unique perspective of what it means to be a woman in business, a woman of color in business, what it means to be inclusive, what diversity means. She is so insightful. She has such good experience, and I hope that you can find your nuggets of gold and enjoy her wisdom and her knowledge. I'm so excited to have Amber May here with us today. Amber is Director of Inclusion and Diversity at Marquette University. We're so thrilled for you to be here. Thank you for spending your time with us, your precious time with us here in the Women in Business series. Amber, could you tell us a little bit about yourself to get started?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Tracy. It's an honor to be here, even virtually. I am, again, the Director of Diversity and Inclusion at Marquette University, specifically the School of Dentistry. And I've been in Wisconsin for about 4 years, since 2016. So I would say I'm fairly new to the diversity and inclusion game in comparison to some of my colleagues that I look up to. But I'm originally from Illinois, and I was raised in San Diego, California for 13 years. I've lived in Philadelphia, and I visited all the four corners, I would say, of the United States. So I was raised in a diverse community, and it's so awesome to now be considered a expert to a degree, or a leader in the midst of something that just really feels so natural to me. So
that's fantastic. It's so great to be able to do what you love. Amber, could you tell us a little bit about some road bumps and pitfalls that new female entrepreneurs might look out for as they're getting started in their career?
Yeah, I think the biggest pitfall that I was taught by one of my transgender colleagues, who is a entrepreneur and identifies as female, talked about confidence. And I think that's something that men are either socialized or just have this ability to have so much confidence, and they kind of get catapulted sometimes into these positions, into the belief and mindset that they can do what they set out to do. And I think women, sometimes we downplay ourselves and our skills and get a little timid. And I would say that I have the benefit of seeing dentistry grow in gender diversity. So there are so many female dentists and doctors now. And one of my closest friends is a private practice owner and has been for 13 years. She's Black, Afro-Latina from Panama, and she's been serving the community of Waukegan. And I have seen her struggle and grow. And I think confidence was key for her to really establish herself, because without that, I don't think that she could have taken the leap to move forward and say, I can own my own practice. I will have some hurdles. I will have some debts, but I can also use my skill set to build my practice and to make touch a community that, may not be used to seeing someone like me. And I'm sorry about that. And eventually, establish myself in a community that is not used to seeing someone like me, and grow a community. So confidence is key. And then just really networking yourself to others, whether it be within your community, nationally or internationally. Don't be afraid to do that, because you never know where your blessing is coming from. You never know if someone's willing to invest in you and your idea, or partner with you, even better. So a lot of times that happens as well. So I think the pitfalls would be not networking, not having the confidence and the boldness to believe that you can acquire and achieve things that anyone else can.
That is so key. I'm really glad you brought that up. I'm going to be in Panama in a couple of months, so I'm really excited to go and work and all the amazing women I'm going to get to chat with down there. And confidence, we become timid, don't we? We often, as women, we are often taught to be demure, whether you were born a woman, you've chosen to be a woman, you've changed, you've transitioned. And right. I think that is a really unique point of view from someone who has transitioned, what it's like to move forward in the world as a male, and what it's like to move forward as a female. There are two perspectives, and having that insight is quite valuable, I think, when sharing advice to other people. So I'm really glad you brought that up. It is so important. It's so key. We take it for granted, either one, depending on what we are, but they are quite different experiences. So yeah, I really.
And you know what else, Tracy? They the comparison was, men will see a job description and say, I have 3 of those characteristics, I'm going to apply for it. And women will say, I have 8, but I need 2 more before I can apply. And I thought that was so realistic. I'm like, you know what? How many job opportunities have I given away because I thought I needed to hit the mark and then put myself out there? So I think that's a key telling sign to how really socialized we are.
Yes, absolutely. We could talk about that for a while. We're going to move on.
Yeah, that's a whole other topic.
No, that's great. Tell me about some tips or tricks that you've learned along the way that might be helpful to young women getting started in their business or career journey.
I don't know how anyone can do what they do successfully without connecting to people, finding people who are smarter than you, who are stronger than you, who seem more confident than you. Now, that might feel negative, but here's what I mean by that. That's an iron sharpens iron situation for me. I have always had people in my close inner circle who I could not only lean on for personal support, but be inspired by and in awe by and learn from, whether it be academically, whether it be professionally, whether it be socially. My best friends are all women who could easily be doing this interview for you because they are extraordinary. And I think that was the biggest thing, is that for one, mentally, I always felt like I want to be a learner first and foremost. I never stopped learning. I love to learn. And I think that brings about a bit of humility that in a lot of ways sometimes gets you in the door without you having to do much, because people are attracted to that. And a good mentor is going to be attracted to someone who seems open and willing to learn. So I think for me, that has been the biggest trick, is to brand myself a learner and to surround myself with men and women who really inspire me and really push me and really trigger that need to, okay, you can do better, you can do more, or you need to do less, whatever that real conversation needs to happen. So I think that's probably the biggest.
That is such a fantastic point. And the Women in Business series was made for that. It was to encourage young women to reach out to other women. We are here. We want to give advice. I have my mentors. You have your mentors. I mean, I lean on them. I depend on them for my livelihood. Right. You only get them by asking. I remember, the first time I asked somebody that I thought was way out of my league, I'm like, excuse me, ma'am, could you please be my mentor? And they're happy to help most of the time if they have the time to do it. Just even if it's an email here and there, just anything can be valuable. And I think the first step is to not be afraid of reaching out to people who you might feel intimidated by, because they can become your best allies, and that is invaluable. So yes, thank you for saying that. I appreciate that. On sort of a more somber note, can you talk about some of the biggest challenges or a big challenge that you've had as a woman in business?
I think you have to constantly recognize that it's going to depend on what industry you're in. For me, the world of dentistry had been mostly male dominated for decades. So for trying to advocate for my dental students to be included, whether it be in research or just in higher level administrative roles within our community, that's something that hadn't always been there, and we're just catching up in certain ways. So I do feel like we're behind in certain ways, but we're making inroads because of the inclusion aspect of women being within the field in and of itself. And so for me, just constantly feeling like you're not being included in major decisions and having to insert yourself, even if it risks being labeled as aggressive or labeled as, the B word, or labeled as, someone who is intimidating, because people of color understand those as microaggressions and some words that are often used when we're doing the exact same things our male counterparts are doing, which is demanding to be included based on our expertise and, respected in the midst of that. So I think those are some of the pitfalls that I've experienced where I'm at prior to where I'm at. And I'm pretty sure I'll experience those things in the future. But one of the ways that you mitigate that is having a strong sense of self and learning to be unapologetic. And so if I could tell my 20-year-old self anything, it would be you're on track, and just get stronger and get more and more firm. And what I realized is, in my 30s now, I have to keep repeating myself to people, and I'm going to repeat it until you actually hear what I have to say. And because eventually, if it's the truth, what's going to happen is it's going to be needed and put in place. And then you're going to see me as the expert, which is happening now, because look at where we're at with our social unrest. Who do you think they're calling and leaning on now? So
it was interesting that we made this appointment before a lot of the unrest that is happening currently happened. And so after that, I was like so happy, because I thought, if there's anybody that knows about this, that can talk about this, would be you. And it's kind of leading us into my next question, which is, what is the biggest piece of advice for getting started with diversity and inclusion in a company as a female executive? Advice that you could give, of course.
I think you need to understand what environment you're getting yourself into. So when you're interviewing for whatever, if you're starting your own business, it's important to, hire a diverse group of thinkers and individuals to build your team, because that will naturally grow your business into something that is diverse and inclusive. If you're stepping into another industry, you need to understand the history of where you are and kind of just do your research to figure out, what is the city like there? Is there a lot of segregation where you're going to move or be? What are the politics like? Those are the things that sometimes can really make the already difficult work harder, or you'll find there are more allies depending on where you are. So those are just a few of the things that come to mind.
That's perfect. That's great. Thank you for that. Another question on the same sort of vein, same train of thought. How do you counteract comments from leadership such as, we just hire or promote the best person of the job regardless of race and gender, which is something you hear a lot, but we know that is not often true. That's just sort of a shell statement that people use. How would people, like, if you're in a leadership position, sort of counteract that just very scripted, I guess, like thing that people say, which is not actually. I'm such a smart aleck. I would say, well, so that means that you're taking applications without seeing the names of the people involved. You're doing blind reviews, which would probably be a no, they're not. But if they were, they wouldn't even have to worry about it, because those evidence that doing those types of recruitments, taking someone's name off, because we know implicit bias plays into a lot of these things, would actually lead to more diversity if that were actually true. So I think a lot of times companies operate under a lot of sometimes, unfortunately, cronyism, and just this idea that, a better culture fit, what fits our culture. And so when someone brings that up, it triggers to me that there's a lack of understanding of what equity is. A lot of folks want to focus on equality, but when it comes to diversity and inclusion work, the toolkit that we use, equity, is what's going to really bring about change. And I'd like to read a definition for you, wouldn't mind. Please do.
Because I think it'll help bring some context to what I'm saying. So when people say things like that, I feel like they focused on the first part of the definition of equity, which is the fair treatment, access, opportunity, and advancement for all people. But what they fail to move forward with is the second part of the definition says, while at the same time striving to identify and eliminate barriers that have prevented the full participation of some groups. And so equality doesn't speak to that. And so that's easier to lean into when you want to talk about diversity and inclusion. So you need to be mindful when you step into this arena, if that's the mentality that your administrators or higher ups or executives have about their recruitment or about the levels of engagement from different types of people. Equity should be the goal, not equality.
That is really insightful, Amber, and educating, to me. I think we need, as a whole, to be educated on what to do. I think there's just a lot of ignorance around what it means, between equality and equity. And I think that any sort of insight and light that we can have on that helps us. So thank you for being very pedantic about it.
I'm constantly having these conversations with people, and it's amazing that people don't know it, but you know what? It's part of the process. I want people to learn. I want people to be better.
Absolutely. So one last thing on this is, what would be some practical advice that you could give young businesswomen on how to practice inclusivity and at school and work? Some of the women will be at school still, some will be young, and just like ABC, start young. This is what you can do.
I think understanding the definition of inclusivity. So for me, and you guys have probably heard this quote, I don't know who originated it, but it's the difference between diversity is being invited to the party, where inclusivity is being asked to dance. And I would say equity is being on the planning board, to make sure the music is equal and diverse as well. But when you're asked to dance, that brings a different level of value to the person. And so I would say the first thing is to be mindful of where you fit within whatever system you're a part of. Are you a minority person? Are you a white person? Are you a person of color? Where do you fit? And if you're a white person, I think that you're going to have to work hard, if you haven't been in a diverse environment, to make sure you're a good listener. First and foremost, listen to your peers, listen to your colleagues, and actually hear what they have to say without being defensive or trying to correct or overspeak their experiences, because that's actually very harmful to people of color. And when you can do that, and when you can listen, you will find more trust within those groups and yourself, and you will find abilities to make real, genuine connections. One of my closest friends is white, and when she comes into our inner circle, she's the minority in the group because she's amazing, and she's a gentle listener, and she has her own experiences, and oftentimes we're finding things that we went through that were so similar, and that connect us. So when you do that as a white person, you are going to gain much more than you probably anticipated. As a person of color, when it comes to inclusivity, you have to be bold and unapologetic about your experiences, and champion that, and be an advocate oftentimes for yourself to be included at the table, whether it's the boardroom, whether it's the kitchen table, whether it's the research table, whatever table that is. And one way you can strengthen yourself is to be a part of any employee resource groups, ERGs, that would be around supporting women of color and making sure that you have connections with other women, and you can lean into them when you have experiences of racism or intolerance or microaggression, and get advised, and a lot of time, lean off of those folks to do what you do, because that's exactly what I have. And I couldn't be a third as successful if I didn't have the support network of other women of color helping me, and then of white women just being allies, true allies.
Right. And I think, oftentimes, like, we speak of like what it means to be an ally, you know, and it comes off, as I've seen a lot of time, as a bit patronizing, to be honest. Like, you know, and I think that, like, understanding, listening is like the key thing. I think listening in any scenario will automatically help you to be compassionate, understanding, like inclusive. I mean, we as human beings, we act as if we're the center of the world. That's what we do naturally, you know?
Right.
And so actually just getting beyond that in the first place is a challenge. And then understanding that, you know, the person in front of you is exactly like you in a lot of ways, where they, you know, they have this, they also want to be heard. They also want to be understood.
Yeah.
And you just, to actually listen to what they're saying and process that, and not just, you know, wait for the next moment where you can sort of, oh yes, no, I understand. Yeah, this is how it is. You know,
Yeah.
just that alone.
Autumn would never do that.
Yeah, no, people do though, and they feel
But people do.
very, very. No, I know. I feel you. I know what you're saying. You know, you haven't even.
No, you don't.
Heard what I just. Okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, so,
Yep.
let's not digress. But yes,
Right.
that's great. It's great advice. Thank you. Is there anything that you would have done differently in your career this far if you could start over again?
You know what I regret not doing in my career is that I feel like I've caught up with in a very small scale is more international engagement and understanding of where I fit as a Black American woman in the context of the worldview. I think that I still have a chance to do it. I mean, I'm not saying it's over, but I think having an early level of comfort to do that, I think would have taken me to a different level than I am now. And I think sometimes as Americans, we get really comfortable and stagnant within our own communities. And then we feel oppressed, and we feel oftentimes limited by what we're told we should have, you know. As a young person, if I would have known that if I'm alive and breathing, anything I touch, I can have. I think that it would be different. You know, it's a game changer. So, I mean, I think I would have done more travel. I would have done more work, you know, outside of myself to really broaden my worldview.
I encourage that. And also, this is a good time for that, since everyone is virtual anyway. You know, let's get you to Latin America right now with this.
Okay, yeah.
And let's see what happens.
I'm willing to go.
No,
love it.
Let's, on a brighter note, what is one thing that you're very proud of that you have accomplished this far in your career?
I think what I'm most proud of at this point is that every single week, and I'm not exaggerating, whether it's a text message, whether it is a DM on my university's Instagram page, whether it's an email, somebody is thanking me for what I do. And to me, it feels like decades of hard work to constantly be validated. I'm one of those kind of people. I need a pat on the back, okay? Some people don't, I do. And to be at a point, sometimes it's overwhelming now. Sometimes it's like, ooh, okay, you know? But that is what I'm most proud of, because I feel like what's happened is my actions are starting to dictate and precede my reputation. And that is the biggest piece of advice I could give you guys as young women and you gals, is that, listen, you folks, your reputation will go further than your resume will. And it feels good to know that what's preceded is integrity. I learned that word in 8th grade through Mrs. Busby, my English teacher, and it has been something that I've held really tightly to. I try to live my life with integrity. I try to do my work with integrity. And I think for the first time in my adult career, I'm seeing the fruit of that by just the appreciation of my community.
Love that. I love that. Tell me a little bit about what your experience, your professional experience has taught you about yourself, about you as the personal Amber, the person.
I think that I sometimes don't realize how much more capable I am of achieving things. I think that professionally, I always want to have the tendency to kind of, I've in the past have like to step aside and to wait my turn and, to be polite. We talked about a little bit of that, but I believe that, as a professional now, it, being a director of diversity has been crucial, but being a Black woman, it's like it all kind of intertwines. There's so many things that intersect and intersect. And so it's becoming more difficult to separate. And I don't think that I have to anymore. I don't feel like I have to separate that because you hired a Black woman with natural hair and a big nose and big lips. This is who I am. And this is my voice. And, being unapologetic about who I am and what you feel you needed, for this position. So I think that answered your question. I'm sorry if I rambled.
No, you haven't rambled at all. I think, the sort of gold nugget is being who you are unapologetically.
Yeah.
That's a loaded statement, and you've said it before, and I just want to take a moment to really like digest that and breathe into that because it's important. And we don't know it. I say we don't. I think it's hard for women to really know what it means to be you. Like, what does it mean to be me when we are constantly influenced by things around us, by media?
Mm-hmm.
It's been talked about.
Right.
We won't go to that again, but we know how toxic it can be, how it misrepresents the truth of classes, of gender, of it just perpetuates stereotypes in a lot of ways. And young women are so susceptible to this because often we don't have a good mentor at home. We don't have somebody that we can look up. So we go to media, we go to TV, we go to social. And this is what we're taught, and this is who we are. So how do we know like who Amber is, who Tracy is at that young age? How do we dissect that and say, this is who I am unapologetically, right? It's just something to think. I don't have the answers to it, but I think it's something that as we mature, we realize it's important. This is me, this is me. And like trying to dissect that, I think is worth a young woman's time early on. Like what makes, Amber, like what makes me shine? What makes me come alive? What is the one thing that really makes me be the best person that I am, and just slowly to understand as little steps. That's what I do. I was like, this feels good, it doesn't feel good, like I'm doing this because I have to, I'm saying this because I think I should, or actually what I want to say is you go to
this. Yeah.
and that's okay, that should be okay, but we're often taught that it's not. We need to please, we need to accommodate everyone else's feelings around us. So I'm glad that you said that because I know it's often said and it's very difficult to actually understand and practice. So
it's easier in some places than others. And I liken it to when I lost the most weight. I'm still on a weight loss journey, recognizing that self-acceptance is a journey. When I started to actually make a good transition was when I said, you know what, this chubby girl is cute still. Like, I'm still going to dress her cute. I'm still going to fix her up. And, and it was like that self-acceptance was like the baseline for me to be able to really recreate what I wanted to do for myself. And so I think once young women start to, who you are today is okay. She's going to have room to grow. She's going to accept that you're going to make mistakes, accept that you're going to fall and fumble, but you're going to recognize that you're going to keep going no matter what. You're going to keep striving for greatness no matter what. It is a journey. Being unapologetic doesn't mean it stops. It just means that today I'm good enough.
Yes. One foot at a time. It doesn't have to be, I'm going to change my whole existence all at once. Every piece about me, everything I don't like about me or my environment, just like pick one and stick with that for a while. See what happens. Give yourself a break, for goodness sake. Pump yourself up. Are there any reoccurring themes, whether it's good or bad, something that you've seen happen
often that women could look out for, that you might say, you know, this is going to happen, likely. This is how I've dealt with it, kind of.
I would say the more you move up and see less women in positions of power, not to be tempted to be competitive to the point of someone else's demise. Be competitive to the point of, that crown looks good on your head, but I'm coming for it, you know, and I want one too, you know, so that you are sharpening each other. Be willing to do that. And I feel like this younger generation does get that. I feel like I've seen a lot more of like women empowerment and, you know, women lifting women, and just different, whether it's social media, whether it's social, whether it's, you know, political. It's like we can lift each other up. We don't have to demean and downplay each other in order to be successful. And so I do like that. I like leaning into, you know, the fact that we're calling each other sis instead of the B word, you know, and, you know, doing things that are uplifting. So I think that there's room for that to get even better. And I love that. And I hope that younger women just continue to lean into that and lift one another up. I mean, I think that's the only way we're going to enforce our voices at the table, at the highest levels of leadership that are so desperately needed, if we can't tell right now.
Absolutely. Magnification, you know, like you need to magnify by working together. I agree with you so much. Everything you say, I agree with. You're so good. This could be a 2-hour interview. We'll do a part 2, Amber part 2.
Yeah, we'll do a part 2.
All right. So if you weren't doing this right now, what would you be doing?
Wow, I try to think about that question. Like, what could I actually say that was relevant? So in my spare time, I did say I was raised in California, and every Californian at some point wants to be an actress, model, superstar, singer, you know. So I have my fair share of, you know, singing and acting and things like that. And so I have been able to participate in 3 productions, 3 movies this year. Well, not this year, I'm sorry, over the past 4 years. The most recent was Widows, starring Viola Davis. I was an extra in that. And it's just incredible to be a part of projects that you have no idea what it is. And then you go to the movies to see yourself on screen, or you see it come together in full. I was a part of that, you know, so I probably would be acting, if you can't tell, a little bit of theatrics, a little bit dramatic. But I plan to at least continue that when I have some free time.
I love that. I love that too. I always thought that I should have been an artist, not a businesswoman.
You just have time, Tracy.
You know, I like sort of play the guitar. I love to dance. I love everything that it has to do with like being artistic and expressive. So I hear you. It's kind of my thing. I was like, I would be a lone artist with like nothing to do with business if I weren't doing this. But I love this. This is great.
That's awesome. I love it.
Tell me about one thing that would have been helpful for you on your journey.
That's a good question. So I feel like I've had so much help. I think understanding personal finance. I think you can't really go that far without it. I mean, I really believe that, I'm not saying that people don't make miracles happen. They do, but your life can be so much better if you understand personal finance. You understand your thinking around it, how you fund your education, how you'll fund your future business, how the dollar works. You have to understand investments. You have to understand these things. I really believe in this world to be successful. And those of us like myself who are learning later in life, I'm not going to give up. I'm still educating myself. Thankfully, due to technology, we can learn things in warp speed that would have taken us decades to learn 10 years ago. I can watch YouTube for 8 hours and just be like, wow, you know, with all the amazing people that are putting out free content to a degree. So be mindful of some of it, but really try to educate yourself and get a financial advisor, or make sure that is a priority. I wish I would have done that probably a little bit earlier.
No, yeah, all of us. I mean, I don't think you ever stop learning about finance, ever, but that is key. It is so key. I'm so glad you brought that up. Yes, definitely. I could do that too. No. So let's close with one question about your what is your hope for the future?
My hope for the future is, on a personal note, that I would impact every system that I was a part of. I don't have to change it. I don't have to dismantle it. I don't have to blow it up. But I want there to be evidence that I was there. And I believe that when that happens, no one can deny like what you brought to whatever environment and whatever system was there. That would be like a kind of like a acknowledgement of the hard work that I think that I'm doing. My hope for society is that we continue to engage with one another in ways that are authentic and not just surface, ways that lead about actual progression and not comfort, because sometimes things have to be broken and reset to heal. And so that's my hope in all the brokenness that we're seeing around us, that it's just opportunity to be reset so that we can begin a proper healing that is so desperately needed, nationally and really worldwide. And then my hope for the world would be that we engage with each other in ways that aren't exploitive of one another, mainly from, in my personal opinion, the West. We've got to be cognizant constantly of how to engage with folks and lift them up. And I think that will make the world a safer place, a more peaceful place that could be experienced and enjoyed by everybody. So
thank you. That's wonderful. Amber May, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate your time, your wisdom, amazing insights. I hope that you continue to make your impact in the world and share your light with people and all your good knowledge, which is so needed. I hope that this is able to reach the ears of some girls and women who really need it. And thanks again. It's been such a pleasure meeting you and chatting with you. And I hope that we get to do a part 2 for real. Because
absolutely, I really think
so much more to share with us.
Absolutely. Thank you for inviting me, and to all you out there watching, I'm so glad to have the opportunity to speak, and I wish I could have been listening to this as a younger person. So feel free to take in whatever you can and reach out when you need to. So thank you for having me, Tracy.
Thank you.